this whole time. There we go. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to do my best to make this thing work well. There's a couple of different things that I want you to be able to see. One of the things when we had gotten over there, and I'll go ahead and start with this part, I was asked, where's all this stuff happening on a map? So that's why I started with this one. Here's the map. Basic, and I'll show you, well, let me just go ahead and go to it. I'm going to have trouble going back and forth on this, so bear with me. Okay, you'll see here. Oh, can I do this? I can do this. I did something right. Okay. Tel Aviv, right there is where we flew into. So this just gives you an idea of how small everything is. One of the things that kind of stood out is, you think of Israel, but this area of Israel, this is Israel here, but notice this whole big block out of it. When I think of the West Bank, I think of this little, look up, a few square miles. This is not a few square miles. This is a big area. And I'm thankful that I was able to get into multiple cities within this area. When we traveled, we came down the Jordan River, we hit Jericho, we hit into Bethlehem, well, we hit Bethlehem from Jerusalem, but we were in this area, and the way the West Bank is set up, some areas are run by Palestinians, but you have your Israeli police. Other areas are run by Israel, and you have Palestinian police. Other areas are run by a mixture. It's messed up. It's like you're living with your enemies, and you make the best of it. And it's a really difficult place. We're going to see later on, Bethlehem down here used to be roughly 80% Christian. And keep in mind, Christian is the loose term, Christian. Now they're at about 10–15%. It is a rough area, and the Christians there are very much hurting. They're hurting bad. So anyways, this area out of Israel makes a big difference in how they live and what they can do. But we'll get to some of that a little bit later. So we came into Tel Aviv. When we drove up to Netanya, I showed you that last week. That was just our first night. Nothing happened there. This is a nice place to go visit. And then we came from Netanya. This was the first day. We went to Caesarea Philippi. And that one I showed you last. I'm sorry, that's not true. Caesarea Maritime, Caesarea on the lake, on the sea. We went to Caesarea, and in the same day, we went to Mount Carmel. We went to Megiddo, which is the same place, over to Nazareth, and then to Lake Tiberias. And we're going to probably today see two of these. My goal is to be able to show you, just for sake of time, Mount Carmel and Megiddo. So Mount Carmel is the place that we'll be starting at. And one of the things I was asked to bring back was rocks. And so there are some samples up here of rocks. I've got the one from Carmel, the one from Migeddo. This one I forgot the label, but this is from Tiberias. What is the other name for Lake Tiberias? No, the name for the sea. Galilee. Sea of Galilee. So, and again, we'll see that one later on. Lake Tiberias is the Sea of Galilee. The people up there, they like it to be called the Sea of Galilee. They like to be called a sea. But I'll tell you what, you're going to see, no pun intended. You're going to see very clearly. You can look across this lake. It is little. There's not much to it. The lake that we go to when we go on vacation up at Bethany's parents is about the same size. This thing is only 13 miles long. So it's not a big place. And that helps you as you start to look at this geography. Everything is a lot smaller than we tend to think it is. So if you can just imagine in your head, and I have trouble doing this, Jim, you'll have a better chance at imagining it than I do. This is the size of New Jersey. It is not big, okay? This is a small area. So that being said, this is just an idea. Well, let's go back to this one. This is where we came that first day up through to Mount Carmel, and Megiddo's at the same place. Now, I say the same place. You see this trip here. If you look at this, 5 miles. I'm using this pointer. I should be using this. This is a lot better. So this distance here from Mount Carmel to Migeddo, it's only about 10, 15 miles. Everything is small. Keep that in your mind. That helps you to understand this better. And how many of you, let me just give this for a sake of reference. This helps me. There are times when I've been driving and I'll come across a mountain range and I'll look and I can see the road going way, way, way out. And I'm wondering, I wonder how far that is. I wonder how far it is I can see. Sometimes you think, well, I can only see a couple of miles. No, you can see what, 15, 20 miles. If it's clear, you can just see it, maybe more, I don't know. Your eyes can see a long ways. This is only 10, 15 miles. So you can see everything, and that's very helpful. You need to know that for some of the things that we're going to be viewing, okay? That'll help us. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so using that as a frame of reference, this distance that we were looking at, it would be like if we didn't have the hills over here, we could see Ferdinand with no problem at all. You can see all the way and it's no issues. It's easy. So that gives you a good frame of reference. Now, we're going to be looking first of all at Mount Carmel. So let me ask you a question. What do we know about Mount Carmel? What happened?
One of Elijah's, was that where he challenged all the servants of Baal?
Yes. Mount Carmel was the clash. That is where he said, you're going to either serve Baal or you're going to serve God. And he put him to test. And he said, okay, the God that answers by fire, that's the real God. Now, why was that significant? That they answer by fire. Is that as significant? Huh?
Yes, it is.
Why?
Because in all religions, when they make sacrifice, they burn a fire upon the altar. And the first people of Baal had to use steel to make a fire to burn the sacrifice and set it themselves.
So, but what did they say? What was Baal's, what's the word? He was the god of what?
He was the god of the sun and the fire.
God of fire. So it's kind of like saying, okay, I'm going to come into your home turf and I'm going to say, I'm going to give you all the advantages. Your God is the God of fire. I'm going to challenge you. Let your God of fire go up against my God and let's see who wins. And he'll answer by fire. So he's giving a very specific challenge here. And he challenges Baal. And that's what this site is famous for. Now,
Plus he went.
oh yeah,
He made sure that
that's right. He poured water all over that area. The trough was full. And then what did God do? He soaked up the sacrifice. He soaked up the rocks. He soaked up the water. He just, boom, he soaked it all up. Here is what's so neat. That's where it happened. This mountaintop is where it happened. Now, everywhere you go in Israel, pretty much, there's a Catholic church, a Catholic monastery, a Catholic something, where and in a sense, I'm thankful for it. Because they went and they found, in general, some of the areas that we got to see. They were able to locate and show some of these things. Now, this is one of these areas where you don't know exactly where it happened, but you know it happened on top of this mountain. That was the spot. And for me, that's an exciting thing to think back that, this is, oh my, what would this be? 4,000 years prior? And that's, it happened here. This is the spot where Elijah took on the prophets of Baal. And again, we don't know that's exactly the area, but it is up there in the general vicinity. Now, this is from the top. This is important. This area, and I'm kind of blending Mount Carmel and Migeddo together. But with Mount Carmel, this is what you see from up top. Why is this important? Because Mount Carmel is it's a mount. It's not a range, it's a mount. Why would that be important to people to have that place in their control? Why would you want to see something coming? Exactly. That is a military post. Do you realize that this area between Mount Carmel and Migeddo, this place has been attacked or at war 34 times at least. There are about 26, 27 layers of destruction, rebuild, destruction, rebuild, destruction, rebuild. It's constant that this has been going on for this spot. This spot is exceptionally important. And we're going to see this, okay? Yes.
That Migeddo, that's where the battle Armageddon right there.
You're getting ahead of me. Your answer is yes. And that's what we're going to come back to. We'll see that one in just a few minutes. Now, this area here, again, this is the top. So this is where Elijah was when he had the confrontation. And this is not the right picture, but you see right there, there's a little bit of water there. Can you see it from where you are? This green is the Kishon River. That's where he took the prophets down and he slew them. That's the spot. Now, one of the things I don't like about pictures is it's hard for me to judge depth. It's hard to judge the steepness. This is a nasty, steep ravine. And so when you hear later on, Elijah said, get down this mountain, rain's coming, get across, go home. And he told Ahab, he went, there's Tabor, Jezreel is over there. So he says Elijah went down that steep embankment and he went across roughly 15 miles and out ran a chariot. That's the area. That's where they ran to. So let's go ahead and go through these real quick, and hopefully these will make good sense to you. It was a hazy day, so it's hard to get everything in. But again, this is from the top. So here is your Kidron, Kishon. I keep saying Kidron. Kidron is in Jerusalem. This one is Kishon. So if I say that wrong again, forgive me. And this, let me just go ahead and point this out. You see this road system here? Right now, obviously, it's a highway. It's got pavement on it, everything else. This is on what's called the Via Maris. And that Via Maris is important. That is, if you are living, say, over here, you're in Asia, and there's this main road to get down to Egypt, you've got to control this, or Egypt is going to come through and they can destroy you. You want to control the main thoroughfare. That is why this is such a hotly contested area. People want this thoroughfare. They've wanted it all through history. That's why there have been 34 wars to try to get to this place and try to keep it. Okay, this is just the monument they had. Obviously up here, you've got, come on, there we go. A monument to Elijah. Notice his foot on top of the prophet's head. They slew him. And that was the whole push for this mountain was Elijah. Now, some of these I left as video, but this is a short one, so don't worry. Let me just stop there. I didn't have any voice. I was just recording it. I'm pretty sure right here, that's Tabor. Now, Mount Tabor is like a central place, and that is probably the place that is believed that Jesus went to the mount and was transfigured. There was no monuments built. Remember, Peter wanted to build monuments. Nothing was built. It's believed that that is the place. Now, it's strategic because we'll get to that one. But to the left of it is Nazareth. To the right of it is Nain. You remember Nain? That's where Jesus healed Luke 4:11, I think, healed the widow or raised the widow's son from the dead. That's where that happened. again, everything's within 10, 15 miles. That's a half a day walk. Not a big deal. So that's what was happening up here. So let's just keep on going across. And right this area, Al was doing the spoiler alert out in here. Now this whole area is the Jezreel Valley. Kishon is just part of it. Up in here is where Armageddon is. Now, one of the biggest complaints that skeptics have made is, how is it that you're going to have all these millions of people coming into one little area like this? That's 10 to 15 miles across. You can put a lot of people in 10 or 15, not even square miles. It's 10 or 15 miles across and longer the other way. That's a big area to put a lot of body. No pun intended again. To put a lot of people. It's a huge area. But that area right now, the direction this is going, we cross Tabor. Now we're up at Armageddon. And this again is important. Right up here, that's Megiddo. That's there's a mount, on top of the mountain, there's the fortress, and then there's the valley of Armageddon. Same thing. But again, we'll come back to that one. Right up in there is Megiddo. Okay, that's a better picture where you can see the Kishon. You see this green area is the river Kishon. This road system, all of this, where it comes through, that's your Via Maris. That road system has never stopped. It goes through the mountain passes. So it's a perfect area that people desire. Okay, this one, and forgive me, I get excited about little things when they happen, but this is a little bit of what was up there. I apologize. I couldn't tell how quiet to talk, how loud to talk, and so I'm a little bit quiet. So you just got to listen close to it. Okay, so that's Armageddon. Yes, the jet distracted me. I enjoy seeing those. That was neat. But so you can see way up here, this is going to be Valley of Armageddon. Up here is Megiddo. This one was just trying to get a panoramic shot. I like those, and I'll take a lot of them, but it's trying to get everything into one picture, so it comes out kind of weird sometimes. But right in the middle again, there's your Tabor. That's your focus point. And that just gives you a little bit what the topography is like. A lot of rocks. It's pretty. There's green, but a lot of rocks. That does come into play. And again, we'll see this later on. Like when David would say, okay, help me out. Psalm 23. He leads me in green pastures. You don't see a lot of green pastures. They had to go and overturn rocks. They had to find stuff. They had to find green pastures. And we're going to see where that was written later on. And that I tried to take just so you can see how steep it is. I mean, this is straight down. You can see where the wheelbarrow is. And then that's a huge drop. There's a huge drop. It's a straight down to get to that brook. It was almost dizzying. It was so steep. But keep in mind, Elijah he sprinted down that thing. This was God empowered him. And it was a huge thing to be able to see where it happened. I don't know how else to word that. That rock's up here. I tried to get one from each place. So there's a rock from Mount Carmel. But that leads us down. When we came off of Mount Carmel, we went to Megiddo. Now, as I was saying, it's just like a mistranslation in a sense from Hebrew into English, and from Greek to English. You've got Megiddo, Mageddon. It's the exact same thing. When you start looking at Armageddon, you're talking about Megiddo. That's the place. And this one I didn't take. This one I pulled off the internet. This is an aerial view of Migeddo. Now, Migeddo, can you think of anybody? I had trouble with this, so if you can't, don't feel bad. Can you think of anybody that had dealings with this place in the scriptures? There's multiples. Anyone? That one I don't remember. They may have, but I don't remember it. You know what? I'm going to say they did because Solomon was there. This is where some of the people that had the things that happened here. This is where Barak defeated the Canaanites. This is where Gideon defeated the Midianites. This is where Saul and Jonathan were hung on the city walls. This is where Josiah, God said, don't go messing with the people I've set up. And Josiah said, I'm going to do it anyways. And Josiah was killed here. This is the place where Solomon came in, and you're going to see this. He rebuilt the gates. He rebuilt and fortified that city. That place, Solomon rebuilt it. The Assyrians, and we're going to try to help you remember it. We're trying to come back to this picture. They wanted this place. It's up on a knoll. You want to be safe. Like Pam was saying, that's where your military safety is. If you're going to withstand a military attack, you really need two things. One of them is elevation. What's the other thing you got to have? Well, temporally speaking, what are you going to die without? Well, you got to have arms, you got some weapons. What else do you have to have or you'll die? Water. Okay, we're going to see that. You see this big hole? This is their water system. And it worked. It worked perfectly. So we'll see that one in a minute too. But here again, at this place, at Migeddo, 34 major battles have happened. And this area is important because of that roadway, that causeway where people could travel. People would go from Africa, Egypt, Asia, no matter what direction you were coming from, you had to go through here. This has been called by some, I forgot, there was a warrior, I want to say maybe Napoleon. I don't think so. Another one said, this is the center of the world. Everything goes through that place. This area has been desired and fought over and wanted, and whoever controlled that route controlled the known world. Now, that one is Israel. That one's Israel controlled. So Israel has it. I would say at this point, you just saw the F-16 flying over. I don't think that land route is still important. You got to get the land troops in. And you're not going to go over some of those mountains with land troops, but that area is still important. We fly them over today, but it has been a hotly contested area. Now, one of the things that I had requested after we left Caesarea, one of the things I was noticing that was going to be a help was if we had the guide's presentation recorded. They started doing it a little bit more as we went after that. So this was one of the ones at Migeddo, and I want you to listen to what he had to say. I'm just going to tell you, listen close. He is fast. He's Israeli. The accent's there. It's difficult, but you can pick up a lot of what he says, and you'll see why it was kind of hard for me sometimes to stay with him. But this will give you a little bit of what he had to say.
So what sisters have done at this time to Migeddo, the place where
You're okay?
history, modern times, and future development. We shared earlier in a place called Mount Carmel, and this is the place where we have Mount Carmel. We shared that during the old times, we had two big empires. From one place we have here Egypt, from the other side we have here Mesopotamia. And we had two alternatives suddenly between these two big empires. Number one would be the Diamaris, the road through the coast of Spain, not the sea road. Because if you're crazy, you come over from Egypt, all the way to the coast of Spain, then we start going all the way inland, and you go all the way to Damascus. From Damascus, you go all the way back to Mesopotamia. And this is one of the alternatives. The second alternative would be taking the King's Highway all the way through Transjordan today. Going from south to north, you can go from Edom, Moab, back to the area of Gilead, and you heard referring to 1 Kings 17 that Elijah is from the mountains of Gilead. It's the hometown for Elijah, which means he's Jordanian anyway. And from there, you will go to Damascus, and then you can make all the way to Spain. But to control and to be able to travel, you have to control this piece of land, which is the promised land. Without controlling the promised land, you will not be able to make your way back and forth, taking these roads. This is why Egyptians had forced people from Mesopotamia, they understood. No one can control the other side without controlling the promised land. As I told you, if you're from Egypt, I'm from Mesopotamia, I'm not bring you to my country because you'll destroy it. And the same thing for you, not bring me here, I'll destroy it. But if this one will take part in between you, it's not mine, it's not yours. And this is why this land was the key for the ancient world to do that. The first time we heard about Megiddo, it was 4,500 years before Christ. But as a massive city, it was 2,000 before the Lord. The first time we heard about the gate was in 800 BC, and then we found the massive gate dates back to the 15th century before Christ. And that was the second one, a man, his name is Thutmose III. Thutmose III, who was the pharaoh in Egypt. He decided to get this country. Thutmose III, he knew that if he would like to control the other side and prevent people from Mesopotamia to come all the way here, he said, I have to take over control of the Midianites. He came here in 1468 before Christ, and he was able to take over control of Megiddo. From Megiddo, he started expanding his power. In fact, Thutmose III, he mentioned that he destroyed Megiddo through his lust. Later on, we can hear about Megiddo also in the Bible, due to the fact that we found and one of the letters, which is the great cabinet pieces, came from Egypt 14th century before Christ. And at the city, we start to read about in the Bible during the time of man, his name was King, the son of King David. Referring to the first book of Kings, chapter 9, verse 15, it said that King Solomon, he was the one to fortify the Amaris by fortifying Gaza, Megiddo, and Hatzor. And he said, if I would like to control this country, I have to fortify the Amaris. King David was such a great king, but at the military point of view, his son was very better than. And this is why this man, he decided to fortify the Amaris, making sure that no one can turn back and forth from his spirit. Later on, a man whose name is Shishak. Shishak, he came and he destroyed this country one more time. He came from Egypt further, the year 925, referring to the first book of Kings. We can tell that he came and he destroyed this country. But eventually, now we have a new power. And this war came from the place called Mesopotamia. These people then came all the way, and by the way, when the Bible speaks about the Phoenicians, we agree that this is here in Phoenicia, because of the plain of Lebanon. The Arameans in the Bible, they will be from Syria. Mesopotamia, they will be from the area of Iran and Persia today, or there are these things. So, second book of Kings starts telling us about now the destruction coming all the way from the east. This is why more than once they tried to control and destroy this country. But one of the serious issues, or one of the serious problems was occurred in the second book of Kings, chapter 15, when a man, his name is elected into the third, the year 732 BC, he came and he destroyed the country. And that was maybe the end of Megiddo during that time, after the destruction that was put forth by our friends in Mesopotamia. Second Chronicles told us that this was the place where we reference King Josiah. From John, check the verses, Second Chronicles 35, verse 20, verse 24, told us that this is the place where King Josiah was killed. So now we understand the place where Josiah was killed during that time. But because this is the place where man is then a general enemy. General enemy, in fact, he was the one to lead the troops. He understood the importance of the DMRS and in fact Megiddo. And to be honest, if you look at Megiddo, why Megiddo to be the heart of the DMRS? For a reason, because this is the place This is a major junction today. No matter where you be, north, south, east, west, you have to come to the middle. A lot of us have cannot continue with destination. So this is a place where all these roads they flow, and this is also a place that on during the time of the British mandate. And then he said, I prefer the people I came from the church. He came into the city and he was able to fill the church outside because people took him. And this is here what happens. But then the second will say, if you don't know our history, then we can make our future. That's why this man was able to win the battle because he knew the history. And until today, we see that this is the place where the battle of Carmel and part of his Carmel Migeddo, this place will take part according to the book of Revelation. And this is the place where the battlefield will take part. And then we know we are standing at the valley itself. So we are standing on the valley itself, which is the valley of Carmel. In fact, the book of Revelation is really great. But also reading the book of Revelation, it will be better if you read the book of Daniel. And this is what Daniel and Revelation they are telling us about the coming days and about the powers and about all this instruction that will come all the way from the east and will come all the way from the north. And this is what Revelation predicting that still we have more instruction will come from this side, will come from the other side, will come from the place where we return, will come from the place where we have today, the area of Russia. And you can tell what's going on these days after these couple of years. They were really crazy to use. In fact, this is the place where really close to you, but in a place called Greenfield, South Carolina. I have a friend there. We were sharing this story, in fact, 3-4 years ago. We were here, June, I think June the 20th, 2020 is the time when they were here, almost like 2 months before the COVID, and we were speaking about what's going on about the book of Revelation, and the president in his chat was, he's on Facebook, you can find him. We were speaking about the battles for the power comes from the area of the east, from the north, and in fact, I was sharing about the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, telling us a bit about the last book of Daniel. But anyhow, if you read Daniel and Revelation, because of that, we have a new power, we have a new word of this time, so the these 16 or 17, or 35 expert, and then to tell us about the power comes from the north, and look, these what's going on. The Bible is telling us about every single thing taking part these days. If you think that it's over, it didn't start yet. So this is just the beginning of the whole nonsense. So we have more things to come. And this is why this place is really important, because the people should be the place where I can understand my history, my future, and I can understand the place where no one's like. And this is here the place, and you know, dates back to the 5th millennium before Christ. So what I'm going to do with you, of course, if you have no questions, we will go all the way up, we will go through the gates, I'll take to see the Israelite gates, I'll focus on we'll see the Canaanite gates.
Okay.
Was that guy Christian?
Yes. Yes. And he is very sought after from a lot in
But if you believe that they are
in the Southern Baptist churches, they seek after him heavy. We ended up having one group that had about 70 people that wanted him, and he had made a commitment to ours of 20 people, and he stayed with us, and that was huge. It was a very well-known group that wanted him, and I appreciated him staying with us. That was a big deal. But he is hard to listen to, and you've got to listen hard. I got used to it, but we're gonna have one more that we're gonna. This is what he was, where he was speaking. There was inside with maps and stuff. Now we're outside at Migeddo, and you'll see some more pictures. And he's going to describe this a whole lot better from outside, in my opinion. So let me give this one to you.
well, it's never ever is called a good story with facts. So
What he just said, people would ask, is that, and they would ask what it was. He said, if that's what you want to believe it is, you can believe what you want to believe. That'll make it more fun for you, but that's not what it is. But he explained what it is, but he had a dry sense of humor. So you just had to kind of put up with that part. So here, part of it will skip.
from here. Number one. Mount Tabor, and we have Nazareth.
Tabor, Nazareth,
Look out to Mount Tabor. There is 2 villages to the right and left to Mount Tabor. Can you see that? There's a village at the right side and there's a village at the left side. Yes. The left side village, this is here what we pointed out over here. And that here, this is here. A village honoring biblical name. What will be his name? Deborah. This is the place for the battle between Deborah's sister and Ballard. Let's see about the possession of that. To the right side, there's another village, it's called Shepherding. But in fact, opposite to it, there's another village. This is the village called Nabi or Mika, the place where Jesus and he raised the son of the freedom. It's the place where the Lord he raised the son of the. And then to the left, you can see Nazareth. This valley here is called the Jezreel Valley. This is the place, the one also we can call it Armageddon Valley, because remember, Armageddon is one part of the Jezreel Valley. And then it's called the Jezreel, but this particular part is called Armageddon. Today I am the king.
I'm just going to forward this a little bit.
Agriculture.
He kept taking questions and trying to feedback. Now he's going to.
Did anyone here serve in the army before? Besides Brother Adam, anyone else? Okay, for people to that's right. Let's think in this way. Let's think like military person. Now I'm standing here at top. First of all, this is here a high elevation. It's higher than the valley itself. This is here the first advantage. Number two, if I just have a quick look here at 360 degrees, I can see that we have a lot of mountains all over, but I don't have here the continuous ridge. One more time.
Not a
I
continuous
don't
ridge.
have here a continuous ridge. Why is it important for me that there is no continuous ridge here? If there is a continuous ridge and my enemy, they will succeed to go on top of this ridge, trust me, no one can stop them and nothing will stop them until they will destroy the city. But if I have no continuous ridges, and look over here, we have and my enemy, they have to take one of these ridges, or they can come here. If I have here surrounding area all with ridges, so the only way to come here is to take one of these ridges. If they have to go all the way up and down, this non-continuous ridge will break their momentum. The second they will come down to the valley, already they are done. And this is the place where I can give them now one-way ticket. So for me, the topography is so important, and the geography of this country is so important. This is why I told you God, he knows the geography of this country. Without God,
You'll hear him say that numerous times. He just said they get a one-way ticket. What he's saying is they'll die. A one-way ticket to death. So that's that's the phrase he uses a lot.
the geography is really going to determine what you're going to do. That's why this place is such an important place, because you can see here the topography is so important. The non-continuous ridges, they are really important. You can see now Mount Carmel. This is the place where we're going today. My left hand side is here, Mount Carmel. So now I have here the mountain, which means now this here, the west side is the place where the Mediterranean Sea will be just the other side. So this is such an important place. I can see now whatever is strategic point. Because for me also I can control the Jezreel Valley from both sides. And I can see now here Nazareth. This is why this place as a location is important, and this is why people they want to control it. Because now coming from north, south, east, you're going to south, you have to pass by this place here. Going to east, going to north, going to west, you have to pass by Megiddo, because eventually these ridges will lead you to the valley, and from here you can now make your way to the other destinations. What else we can see? Would you like to see anything else? Yes? You want to see anything else?
Got a lot of farmland.
Farmland, they are from the town of Pisa. Yes, no. Mount Tabor just is standing all by itself. The single home. It's one. Well, it's not a ridge. This is why I said this is a ridge. We will see also the day after tomorrow, Mount Hermon is a ridge. Different peaks. This is here one single mountain. Look, it's not attached to anything else. And this is what we will say tomorrow and after tomorrow. We will speak about that today. What else we can see from here? Let me go and show you. Stand up and follow them.
Okay. Let's get back.
This drone designed to save lives mysteriously disappeared.
You didn't see that.
There's a tiny US drone company that made a groundbreaking new drone, and it's taking
I'm
the
sorry.
quadcopter market by storm. Big drone companies are trying their hardest to ban this drone in the US. Rather than buying a $1,000 drone from a well-known brand, this $99 alternative is making drones.
There. I'm sorry. Thought I had that stop.
That is shift.
Okay, I've lost this. That is from the Sea of Galilee. They found one of the fishing boats from Jesus' time. And that's the size. We'll get to that one too. Okay, so this is kind of the area where we were at just now. You come into this area, you've got the northern palace, you've got the horse stables, and we're going to be going through some of this. I will try to do this quickly because I know I'm running short on my time. Remember when we talked a minute ago about Solomon had come into this area and Solomon reestablished the gates. For me, this was like kind of, this is neat. These are the gates. Anything, there's a black line, you can't see it. There's a black line where it was originals and then they had to rebuild some on top to recreate it. But these are the gates that Solomon came in and reestablished. You don't have the wooden gates. You don't find 3,000-4,000-year-old wood, but the rocks are still here. These are the gates that Solomon had reestablished. And as you come in, one of the things that impressed me, you hear about, you remember with Boaz and Ruth. Boaz wanted to marry Ruth. He met with the guy, the near kinsman, and he said, okay, you got your options. Do you want to marry her? If you do, you get the mother-in-law. And he backed out of that one pretty quick. And that's where the shoe incident happened. You know, we're going to take the shoe off. What they did is they would come into the gate and they would have these little nooks. And this is where they would meet. They would transact business. They would do things here. But this is what it looked like. Now, granted, you had things going up higher. You had the domes, the archways that were intact. But this is where they would come and they would do business. They would have meetings. And some of this, again, still original. Now they had the wood that they replaced in there that would protect against earthquakes. It would allow things to shift because the wood would give. But these are the areas that were off to the sides where people would go in and they would conduct business. And this is what Solomon had built. And it was there. That it was just an exciting to see. I don't need archaeology to prove to me that the Bible is true, but I do enjoy seeing archaeology back up what the scriptures say. And that's what was happening here. Now this area is this is showing you what a lot of the area is like with the topography, but these are just some of the ruins that they discovered of the town, of the city. And this had been under Assyrian control as well, but this is what the area would have been like in those times. Now the northern stables, this area has been criticized by skeptics, and what archaeologists are saying, or rephrase that, we know that Solomon had next to his palace stables. It would have held about 400 horses. They're saying, no, we don't think these were all, and this is just their drawing, we don't think this was stables. We think this is just storehouses. But one of the things that was interesting with this, as they were undigging it with this group, where this group is, let me see if I can find it here, right in this area. There were two of them they uncovered. This right there is a manger. It's a feeding trough for horses. Why do you need a feeding trough for horses that's 4,000 years old, by the way? If you didn't have horses, what do you need it for? This was the stable. And it's interesting to keep in mind too, that would have been the thing that Jesus was laid in at his birth. He was laid in a lowly manger where they would have been feeding animals. They would have probably had to get garbage out of it to put him in it. This, I say garbage, chewed up food or, remains. That's what he would have been in. So this area is what would have been the stables. And that's just another view from going up from it. Now, this again, here's the stables with the group, and you can see right up here. This would have been where the northern palace was. The northern palace, obviously Solomon's palace, this is where he lived. This is their rendition of that. And that is up here. You can see a lot of the remnants of it as you're up there. Overlooking from where his palace is, you have these almond trees, and right there, turns there's a better picture, there's Tabor. That's kind of like a center thing, but it's just a good focal point to be able to look at and know, okay, right over here, left Nazareth, right Nain, and as you go up this way is where you get to Jezreel, and then this direction would be, no, I'm backwards. This direction would be Mount Carmel. So now we're at Megiddo.
What kind of trees did you say?
Almond. Lots of almonds. There's another one of Mount Tabor. I just wanted to get a close up in there. This one is heartbreaking for me. What was Solomon's weak point? Women. That's his weak point. And he was a failure, a total failure. Okay. This is important. This, you remember I told you a minute ago that you can see from this spot at Megiddo, you can see Mount Carmel, right? Okay, what happened at Mount Carmel? Who was defeated? What god was defeated? Baal was defeated. Baal was totally annihilated, all the prophets killed. And you can see it from this knoll. From Megiddo, you can see Carmel. Solomon should have known and he didn't know. That's the spot where Baal was defeated. Baal is a false god. We don't serve Baal. That is a Baal altar. These stairs coming up to it, it's still intact. This is where they would go and do human sacrifice. And that was where Solomon, just off of the northern palace, had this temple for one of his wives to worship Baal. And he knew that it was a false god. He could see where Baal was defeated, and he still allowed this. And those remains were uncovered. Now, let's just camp there for a second. We know good and well that Jesus is Lord. He's the one that deserves to be worshiped. He's the one we should follow. We have seen this in our lives. We've experienced. If you're saved tonight, you've experienced that transformation. You know that he does not want you following flesh. He doesn't want you living for the things of the world. And we can see this on a regular basis. We see that he is Lord and we should worship him. We have the written word of God telling us all this. And yet what do we constantly want to do? We want to constantly build these altars right in sight, knowing that we should be serving Jesus. This is sad. That is exactly what Solomon did. He fortified this place. He brought in all these wives, and he let them build altars to false gods. And he messed up a lot of people. He messed up that kingdom by doing this. And that's a good challenge for us. When we see things like this that were allowed to take place, let's not allow these false gods in our lives. Let's not allow anything to take the place of Jesus. Now, this area is just a different section, and it's showing how things that had gone on in this community during its occupation. It had the multiple layers, had multiple conquests that were happening. This is another one of the sections that they're uncovering. And again, coming off of Solomon's area. Solomon's palace, I should say, I'm sorry. Then we get to the Assyrian city. This is where King Josiah decided to go up and challenge who God said not to challenge, and he was killed for it. And that's the area where he would have been killed. Now, the water system, we mentioned that. What they did for this water system, and this was impressive. If you notice, you see how the tiers, these rocks are tiered going down through here? This was their original steps. This is how they got down into this well to get their water. Now, obviously, we got it a little bit nicer, but This was the section where they went through and had to go down to get their water. There, I wanted it moving a little bit. Bad picture, I know. This was all hewn out by chisels. Chisels took this thing down. It was amazing what the Israelites had done. There's my roommate. Just get an idea, 6'7", and he's nothing compared to this. This is the area that they chiseled out. There's the shaft going down into this tunnel. And you remember with Hezekiah's tunnel, this is not it. Hezekiah's tunnel, they started from 2 separate ends and went until they met. That took a lot of brains to be able to make that happen. Same thing happened here. They went from 2 separate sides until they met.
So it's cold in there.
It was nice. It was nice. Probably like 60s. I liked it. That's coming back out of it. Some of the caves, yes, I'm trying to go faster, but that's coming back. That gives you an idea of the depth. So this is coming out the entrance. So where the water would have come in. I took that actually for Ray Bird's benefit. He does not like snakes, and this is just a little big centipede. It's about that big, but I wanted him to be able to have fun with that one, but it was neat. So not a biggie. And that's the rock that we pulled out from Migeddo. Now, again, I'm extending it up on Tabor. Let me see. Oh, come on, where am I? There we go. This one. Come on, give it to me. I'm sorry. It's not coming up.
But they hadn't been building that. Think that's what I'm saying.
It was a job. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get you to. So this is the place where we went in. There, the tunnel is under this way, and the spring that they brought up, they basically covered all an underground spring, so the enemies coming in wouldn't be able to get and stop their water source. So this was a huge feat that they accomplished, and it was just, it shows you the importance of this whole knoll. You can see where it's up on a ridge here, or up on a mountain here. But that is Migeddo. And
Still water in there?
very little, all diverted. It's gone, but it was an amazing feat. So for me, it was an encouraging place for a couple of reasons. One, to see how God has preserved that, how we have all of this, but to know that's the place where it's all going to end. That's the place where this battle is going to happen. And it's there waiting. And it's encouraging to me to know, what the Bible is saying is true. We can be confident that God is going to have his last battle right there. It's going to happen. And the part I wanted to leave you with as far as the challenge is that altar of Baal. Be thinking about that. We know better. Solomon knew better, and yet he allowed this foolishness, this sin to happen in his life on his watch. We can't be doing this. Okay. Any questions on Migeddo or Mount Carmel before we close? I've kept you over. I apologize. No questions? Comments?
It brought it to life.
It does.
You know it, believe it, but actually
It was exciting.
When you were over there, did you see where devil took Jesus and kept him? Were you able to see that?
That was multiple places. One of them, yes. The one that we saw was the pinnacle of the temple. When you took him up top of the pinnacle, that one we were able to see. And matter of fact, they unearthed what they believe, and it's not there, they did a replica at the temple. The one that they unearthed is in the Israeli Museum. It's got the Roman center, the corner of the Roman, the end of the temple, where it was the fortress. They found it, and it's got the Roman writings, it's got the Roman stuff. They believe that's the place where somewhere around there, Jesus would have been on the edge, and Satan saying, jump, jump. And it's a long ways down. But yeah, I got to see that. It was really good. For me, I'll say this was just day one, really. And at this point, it's still kind of sinking in. And you're trying to, this was Holy Land. Yeah, I know that. And it's not really, it hadn't really hit me as much. It started hitting me more on day 2, day 3. We started getting the Sea of Galilee and seeing things there. It started sinking in more. So here I'm having to go back and do a lot of recreating in my head. But as you went further, and so it started sinking in better for me. I'm kind of slow.
So the people that actually live in that area, you have the opportunity to talk to them and how they, deal with living in that area?
Not really with how they lived. We didn't get to talk with a lot of the people who were there a lot. You were constantly on the move. The people we would end up talking more to were just the people that we went into their shops, or we walked by their stores, and they wanted your money. And just to give you an idea of the days, they would tell you, be up at 6, be ready, have breakfast at 6:30, be ready to leave by 7. And you would leave from there and have appointments until supper. It was just constant, and it was tiring. So there wasn't a lot of time we were visiting with people in the area.
Did you see where David fought Goliath?
No. So next week, we'll be looking at Nazareth and Magdala. Now, Magdala, you'll know it more as Mary Magdalene, Mary from Magdala. So that's the area we'll be seeing next week. So let's go ahead and close in a word of prayer, and we'll be dismissed.